Hello, everybody. Welcome to Amar's Game Chat. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. I am Amar, and today we are just 1 week away from the release of Pokemon Legends ZA. So I just wanted to do this video to talk about some of my last minute thoughts, last minute predictions going into the game, some of my hopes when it comes to things like the Mega Evolutions, some of the storylines they might address from Pokemon X and Y, and yeah, so just a video talking about the game a little bit more. Maybe I'll do one more video before the game releases, just to fully get everything out there. But for now, I just wanted to do this 1 week commemoration video, and yeah. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So yeah, we are just 1 week away from the game's release. So there's still a lot to talk about. There's still a lot that I'm assuming they haven't shown off just yet. Not pre-release, but preloading for the game also begins today. So, or it already technically begun, depending on like what your region is in, because Japan, I believe, already had preload. Like the preload already began in Japan and Australia and stuff like that. But the game is 5 GB large on the Nintendo Switch, and then 10 GB on the Nintendo Switch 2. So it's double the size on the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm confident they're not like putting like extra content in the game, but that just means that there is probably a lot of like graphics, work on the graphics, like bring it up to like 4K. And obviously the game is, I believe, running at 4K 60 on the Switch too. But at least it's definitely visually enhanced. That some of the textures are definitely upresed, as some may say. So that's definitely taking account for like most of the extra space that the game's taking up. But still, 5 GB is pretty big. That I don't like a lot, like allotting the size of like the games to how much content's in the game, because that has proven to be false in the past. We've gotten a lot of games that are don't have as much content, that are so much larger, and then we also gotten games that are so much smaller in size, especially on the Nintendo Switch. And those games have so much content in them. It's just, I think it's heavily dependent on just how compressed like the developer and the publisher are really able to get the games. And it seems like Pokemon has been able to do that in the past. Scarlet and Violet is smaller than Sword and Shield, and I would say pretty objectively that the Scarlet and Violet is a lot bigger in size and scope, and the amount of Pokemon that are in that game, and like the texture work and everything. So I think it's I'm just telling you all the preloads beginning, so get that space ready on your Switch and your Switch 2 if you are buying the game digitally. But yeah, that's like pretty much the last major pre-release thing, except reviews, to happen before the game launches. So I think that's very, very cool and very fun. You can have the game ready at midnight in your region, which is just really great. But for me, the one thing I'm really looking forward to when it comes to Pokemon Legends ZA is the idea of just the expansion of the Kalos story. Back when I played Kalos in 2013, I never really realized like that it was like a shorter game, I guess, in general, when it comes to the story, or some of the things that I might have been missing. And I still don't really notice those things. I started a playthrough of Pokemon Y. I played Pokemon at X all the way back in 2013, but I started a playthrough Pokemon Y after Pokemon Legends ZA was announced. And I don't really notice those story things, but I think it makes, like, there's obviously probably things that they did cut out. Obviously there's probably a story that was much larger with Zygarde, and they just didn't really include it there. They were obviously probably planning it for the sequel games, or Pokemon Z, or whatever it would have ended up being. And that story was obviously cut and maybe put into Sun and Moon to a certain extent, because we do have the Zygarde cells there, and we do have 10% and 100% form in Pokemon Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon, I believe. Obviously, for sure Pokemon Sun and Moon, but I'm not sure. I think that stuff also carried over to Pokemon's Ultra Sun and Moon. But um, so that those are definitely elements that were supposed to be in a sequel game for X and Y, and they just didn't make it in. But I'm expecting to see a lot of that also present in ZA, because we this game is, at least from even I mean, we haven't really seen much of Zygarde yet. Presumably we're gonna see all three forms of Zygarde here, the 10%, 50%, and the 100% form. Maybe we get another form. This is obviously a Mega Evolution game, so maybe we get a Mega Evolution for Zygarde, which would be pretty cool. Speaking of just the three legendaries in general of the games, Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde, none of them have mega forms, which is kind of a little bit different. But not like super different, because obviously like Zamazenta and Zacian don't have Dynamax forms, and Lunala and Solgaleo don't. Well, I mean, I think they have exclusive Z moves, so it's not like the most guaranteed thing, but for the first game to introduce like a major new gimmick like Mega Evolution into the game, I think it's kind of weird that the legendaries didn't get their own Mega Evolutions, but maybe that's gonna be remedied here, because obviously we have seen that the Kalos trio also gets their own Mega Evolutions in this game, and obviously going forward they're gonna have their own Mega Evolutions now. And that I think that kind of speaks to just in general. We're expecting a lot of Mega Evolutions here, but I will get to that in just a minute. But yeah, I'm expecting an expansion of the Kalos story. It's definitely going to be like it might be a little bit more limited in scope of how expansive it could be, because obviously we are just gonna stay put in Lumio City. That doesn't mean that we're just gonna be like, obviously we've seen like the like at least one like scene that looks like we're in the underground of of Lumio City, so that doesn't mean we're just gonna stay up ground or above ground in Lumios. But so yes, we could have layers. We could be obviously exploring a lot more of Lumios than we had access to in X and Y. But obviously there's like certain things like the power plant. Obviously that was highly speculative that maybe Volcanion could have been in that power plant, and we probably won't visit the power plant here, but maybe we do have a connection, through the underground. We don't ever like necessarily leave the power plant, but maybe we get an entrance to the power plant through the underground, and that's how we get Volcanion. Because I'm assuming, just like what they did with, Pokemon like Shaman and Darkrai and Cresselia and Manaphy and everybody in Pokemon Legends Arceus, all like the major legendaries and major mythicals probably do get some sort of story quest, side quest in this game. And that would be like pretty cool for Pokemon like Volcanion and Diancie, which didn't really get much in Pokemon X and Y. But yeah, that expansion of the story, obviously we're probably gonna get an expansion of AZ's story, which is gonna be really cool, I think. We saw, obviously the last thing we really saw of AZ and X and Y was him being forgiven by his Floette, and so we see obviously AZ is gonna be the one of the main characters, and he's running Hotel Z, which is like our base of operations in this game. So that's gonna be very cool to see his story expand as well. Obviously probably Floette's gonna get a story here. I'm expecting to see a little bit more of that story. Those again, like with a sequel or Pokemon Z, that could have been like something that we would have seen more of in that game. Maybe we would have seen like an alternate side of all that in that game. Maybe Floette doesn't return to AZ in that game, who knows? But I think that we'll definitely see an expansion of AZ story. I mean, they have put him in the forefront for a reason. We're definitely going to interact with him a lot. We'll definitely find out, I think, a little bit more about his past. Maybe with Floette around, maybe we will like he'll be more willing to talk about that past, and like their bond a little bit more. Um, maybe not like harp on the bad memories of what happened with the weapon and everything, but um, still, you know, I think we'll see a lot of his AZ's past, and that's probably like my major prediction here. We'll see much of AZ's past just because AZ Z through A, like I mean, obviously Z through A is really speaking to the battle royale and battle club and everything, but I think AZ is going to be at the forefront here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see like gym leaders from X and Y show up here. Obviously, a lot older than they were in X and Y. Like I think the game takes place like 11 years after X and Y release. I mean X and Y, like before X and Y is like after X and Y, it's like entire story and everything, and that's why we see like an older Emma here, and AZ is like seemingly much taller than he was in X and Y, and we see like a Mabel who is taking on a professor role now to us. So there's a lot there. I think obviously all the gym leaders won't show up, but someone like Clement, who has his gym in Lumio City, could definitely show up, and we can interact with him, and maybe hear about how the gym leader circuit has been going since the original games. But we're kind of in that same position that the game is in now, that last time we visited Kalos was in 2013, and now it is 2015. I mean, not 2015. Now it's 2025, and that seems like that's like the general time between in years. Obviously, X and Y released on December 12th, and this game is releasing on December 16th. So it will be just over 12 years since we visited Kalos and X and Y. But I believe like the belief and speculation right now is that this is a Lumios City that like 11 more, it's like 11 more years in the future from X and Y, and that's why like they're redoing it and everything. That's why it's so far in its remodeling and everything. It's forgot the right word, like what they're calling it, but just like it's remodeling and making it more adapt to both humans and Pokemon. A redevelopment plan. There you go, redevelopment plan. But yeah, and that's why it's like so far ahead, and that's why they already have like all the wild areas and wild zones already set up and everything. And I don't want to say their name, but like Kwanzanico, that's why they're so involved here, because they've had so much time to get involved. And yeah, so I don't know, it's been a long time since we've really visited Kalos, and then and Pokemon Company and Game Freak have visited Kalos, so there's a lot that they could do here, and there's a lot that obviously a lot of people wanted from the original games that they can talk about and they could do here. A lot of story, a lot of the like we have a lot of customization options, which obviously started in not Lumios, in X and Y, and in theory Lumios City. We have a lot of customization options here. It definitely seems like it's a lot more expanded now compared to the older customization options, even on the Switch games, which is very, very fun. But yeah, I think it's just going to be a very fun game. Very fun just to go back to even if we can't necessarily see and visit, go out of Lumio City, maybe we still get maybe some screenshots of other areas modeled after in that time frame, as they've changed. We can maybe see those. The weird thing with Legends ZA, just in general, is when if they ever go back to Kalos in the future, at least in my mind, if they ever go back to Kalos in the future for an X and Y remake, I'm assuming they probably have to include ZA content in there, just because I think it makes sense. That's an easy way just to build out the X and Y remakes. And in theory, what Legends ZA, what Legends Arceus was the Gen 4 remakes from Game Freak, and this is kind of the Gen 6 remakes from Game Freak, even though obviously it's a little more limited in the areas that you can go to. But still, I expect maybe one day we will get a Generation 6 remake, and I'm expecting, ZA content to be in there, and how the world's expanded. Maybe we get a sequel to ZA then, depending on how this game obviously goes. But I think just in general, it's gonna be really interesting, in 20 years to look back and maybe be at the point of Generation 6 remakes, and just to see how much everything has evolved in Lumio City and Kalos in general, and that's very cool. But that's a little bit off. That's a little bit off topic. We're speaking about ZA pretty much here. But yeah, there's characters that obviously, there's stuff that happened in X and Y, like the team player in large part they kind of used the weapon of and so it would be kind of cool to hear them talk about that stuff here. What really, because obviously Team Player pretty much disbanded after that. So what happened to Team Player? Just hearing, maybe obviously we've already seen some characters, obviously Mabel being the biggest one, of what their life looks like after Team Flare. And so, I mean, obviously I'm expecting them to talk about that here. Mabel probably will allude to her past. Maybe not exactly do quote unquote lore drops about what's happened to Team Flare and what they did technically, but it would be, I mean, I think that's what they're really doing here. Obviously it's expanding the X and Y story, and Team Flare is a very important part of that. Obviously I think Quazonico is pretty much like our Team Flare equivalent, or like our evil team in this game, even if we haven't, they haven't really talked about that, but they seem like an evil team. Maybe their intentions aren't as evil as Team Flare, but they do seem like maybe they're like a little bit of an antagonistic force in this game. So I think it makes sense. Maybe some characters from Team Flare move to Quazonico, and that's where they they're doing their utmost work after Team Flare. But still, I'm expecting we might run into some grunts from Team Flare all around Lumio City, and we're gonna run into some more like the bosses from Team Flare outside of Mabel, just to see what they're doing. Again, even if the scope of the area that we can traverse to is a little bit limited in terms of Lumio City, there's still a lot they could do in Lumio City. We've technically already seen the map of the game, and it's pretty big. So I'm not and I think, I don't know, we have to really wait and see and play through the entire Lumio City, but I think they have a lot of space to do a lot of stuff in this game, in that city. Again, and we kind of seen underground a little bit in that one scene with the clef key and everything, from the final trailer. So there could be some characters down there too, who knows? But I think that's just very exciting stuff. Again, I think that's probably the most exciting thing for a lot of people, just seeing how Kalos has expanded. Obviously we have our own characters now. Maybe we see Callum and Serena again as grown up, characters that have grown up now, and maybe we could battle them. Maybe that's a post-game thing. But yeah, I'm expecting to definitely see an expansion of the story, and then obviously ZA to emerge as its own story. We got our own cast of characters. We got Team MZ, which is what I believe that's the name of a team we're a part of, and that's the team that is helping us grow through the ranks of the Battle Club and Battle Royale and everything. And speaking of that a little bit, I'm very excited to play through the game using this more action-based system. I don't think it's something that's gonna stay in the Pokemon series necessarily. I think it's definitely something that is experimental. So for Generation 10, which is presumably coming out next year, for Generation 10, I'm not expecting us to go back to what the system is in this game. I'm expecting it to be more turn-based. Maybe they'll implement some smaller features from this, maybe maybe some of the like the effects of like certain attacks are built into the attacks this time. um like, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what I'm saying here, but it would be cool for them to like adjust, like to adapt some of the stuff that we're seeing. But obviously, that's also a little more difficult because um, in like the turn-based system, we're dealing with like PP and everything. We're like and we have like it's more defined like damage point. Like we get more battle points and damage points defined, um, and everything. And obviously here we don't really have like a set amount of like attacks that you can use for them. It's all based on like the countdown meter, like how fast an attack can reload and everything, and like be ready again. So and I'm like, there's probably a text like quick attack that's like gonna refresh like much faster than something like hyper beam, and I don't think that's something they're gonna do here like in the mainline game. So I'm excited just to see how they're gonna change it up for this game. um I've seen it discussed in the past, and I definitely agree with it, that Pokemon Legends EA is like what Pokemon Legends Arceus did for catching, being able to catch all Pokemon without really needing to go into a battle with them. Most Pokemon, obviously, legendaries, you can't really do that with. But, being able to catch a lot of Pokemon without going into a battle with them, and, being able to, like, just, like, they really evolved catching, being able to do the rolls and everything, and being able to hide from Pokemon. It definitely did a lot for catching, and this game is definitely doing a lot for battling. And it's evolving battling in a way that obviously may not appear again for a while. I think it makes sense for like the Legend games to have different battle systems because they are a little bit more experimental. They are mainline games, but obviously I think having introducing new features here that can be built on in future mainline games, like future like the generation games, where we like introduce like the new regions, everything. I think that makes sense. And so we kind of saw that with Legends Arceus. I think we're gonna see that a lot more with Legends EA, since there's definitely some things that they can pull from the battle system to implement into other games in the future. But I think like with like Pokemon Champions, I think where the battle system in like those games will stay fairly close to what Pokemon Champions is offering when that releases next year. But besides that, I'm very excited for the battling system. It's gonna be something that I think is gonna keep me on my toes, in theory, just because you're always gonna have to be like interacting with your Pokemon and making sure that you're choosing the right move for them, making sure you're staying out of the way, because technically you can also get damaged from other attacks, which it's kind of interesting because I don't think that fall damage is back in this game, and obviously it makes sense that there's no fall damage in this game because we do have a Rotom phone, which is like it's acting like I'm just gonna say like an umbrella, like it's gonna cushion your fall to make sure you're not getting you're not like hurt when you fall, if you fall off a building or something in this game. But obviously they still kept being able to get attacked from opponents' Pokemon and wild Pokemon. So, and I believe it's been confirmed that in the form of that you can like black out, which is very interesting. Like we probably just go straight back to like a Pokemon Center or something, but I think that's really cool that they brought that back, just because it's like you're balancing a lot of different things. Like you want your Pokemon to obviously, which is going to be following you to some certain extent, you want them to still be in the position to be able to attack the opponent's Pokemon, but you also don't want to be hurt from the opponent Pokemon's attack. So I think it's just very fun, very, very interesting. Like, again, balance. You have to like, it's like a balancing act. So I think that's very cool. But yeah, I think the battle systems are very awesome. I think I'm excited just to use it and just to see how it works, both in the battling, wild Pokemon, battling of trainers, and obviously the rogue mega evolution battles, which is something I'm also very excited about, because those are like our main like boss battles in this game, and we get like mega stones for them. I think we can also craft not really craft mega stones, but yeah, we can't really craft mega stones, but we can obviously find like mega crystals around, and we can trade them at like I believe like a trading post, and you get mega stones through that. And then obviously we also have the confirmation that you can get some mega stones through the online mode, and we could probably find maybe one or a couple of mega stones throughout like the world that like are very special areas, like maybe like they're symbolizing something about like in the area, and that's where our mega stone is also. So that's very cool. You know, we're gonna have more megas than we've ever had in this game, compared to any other game, which is very, very fun. But yeah, you know, we also have like things like the battle club. Again, like I believe that is the online mode, and that's gonna be really fun. I don't know how much I will play of that necessarily, just because I don't really play Pokemon online that much. I haven't really done much battling online since the 3DS games, so you know I'm one generation removed from, I guess, the battling online. But I still think that's really cool. I'm not sure if they're bringing back things like Wonder Trade. It seems like that's something that could be in the game. Obviously, like Wonder Trade doesn't really make sense for like Legends Arceus, but they're bringing back online battles. They're bringing back being up to online trade and everything. I wouldn't be surprised if like something like Wonder Trade shows up, and they don't really need to talk about that much, just because you know it's a feature that's pretty much defined by itself. You know, you put your own Pokemon in there and you just trade them, and then you get a Pokemon back, which I think is very cool. But you know, so, and like but I definitely will play it at least early on, just because that is how we're gonna be able to seemingly get the starter mega stones for the Kalos starters. So I don't really have a problem with that, you know, because it's gonna introduce me to something that's a little bit different, that obviously is implementing what the main game's battle system is into it even a different way, because it's gonna be you versus 3 other people. So I think that's very cool. I think that's gonna be a very fun mode just to try out, and just play through, maybe pop into maybe once every while, just try it out a little bit. But besides that, obviously, you know, we obviously have the ZA Royale, which is the main battling system in this game, or like the main rank system, like for the single player. And I think that looks really cool. You know, that's seemingly how we're gonna be able to level up and obviously make it throughout the entire game. Because again, this game is seemingly very focused on, like in the same way that Legends Arceus was focused on you completing your Pokedex and everything, this game is definitely focused on you leveling up your ranks and being able to improve your battling style, and like leveling up your Pokemon and everything, which is just very cool. You know, again, it's always fun just to see how, you know, now that we've really seen what a Legends Pokemon game could be, just basically seeing how these games are like changing the formula of Pokemon going into the future. But yeah, you know, I'm excited for that. You know, I'm excited for, you know, it seems like there's still gonna be like Pokemon Pokedex rewards and everything. I think we've seen like screenshots where, but like you can level up your Pokedex, and like through that you get like new TMs and HMs. Well, probably just TMs, not HMs, but you get new like 2 TMs through there. And then we've also seen like there's some quests maybe that are associated with your Pokedex on that screen. So that's very cool. You know, everything about this game is just seemingly it's gonna be really cool and really fun, and I'm very excited about that. But I think I just want to finish off just talking about some of the Mega Evolutions. We have, if you include like the both Raichu forms, we have 9 Mega Evolutions that have been officially revealed. 8 if you don't include the 2 Mega Raichus as 2 different ones, as just like 8 if you include them just as 1. But we have 8 new Mega Evolutions already, and presumably we have at least 8 more that they haven't shown off yet for Legends ZA, if not more. And I think that's very cool. I think that the one thing I would want from a new Mega Evolution, like at least one Mega Evolution, I want one of them to be outside of the 1 through 6 generations, just because this will be the first time that we would ever see a Mega Evolution, you know, for a future game, just because we haven't had the chance before. It doesn't need to be like multiple of them. We don't need to like yeah, like generation 7, 8, and 9 Mega Evolutions. But it'd be cool if they just did one or two, maybe three, but just of like future Pokemon, maybe like a Mega Obstagoon or a Mega Dodonzo or something like that. I think that'd be pretty cool. Um, like a Mega Crab Brawler. I think that'd be kind of cool. If they like want to just do, some future Mega Evolutions. Because presumably, I think Mega Evolutions are here to stay. So I think in maybe Generation 10, maybe we get a couple more Mega Evolutions. I think that's an easier thing for them to do. We could get like some regional evolution. I don't think we're in regional Pokemon in this game, just because it seems like the focus is on Mega Evolutions. Obviously, in like Pokemon Legends Arceus, it makes sense because we had Hisui forms, and we have Pokemon that like are older. They obviously evolved from their past version to now, so it made a lot more sense for there to be regional forms and everything. But we're kind of still we're in the present now. We've been to Kalos before. I think it's a little different now, with us being in Kalos before so like quickly, like in the modern day, that it would be like difficult for there to be regional evolution, like regional Pokemon and like regional forms Pokemon. So I think Mega Evolutions is a good middle ground between those, and like just being able to add like a new form to a existing Pokemon. I think it makes sense. So again, and I think, again, as I said, I think Mega Evolutions are probably here to stay, at least for Generation 10, because they are going to be in Champions. I think it makes sense for them to introduce new Mega Evolutions. It might even make sense for them to like introduce like new Dynamax forms and Gigantamax forms in the future, which seems really interesting with Pokemon Champion, because presumably Gigantamaxing and Dynamaxing are in that game. So we are going to get like Generation 9 Dynamaxes and stuff, and that's just gonna be really fun to play with. In the same way, we're gonna get like Generation 8 Pokemon using Z moves, and again, if they introduce like any future like Generation 7, 8, or 9 Mega Evolutions, we're gonna get Mega Evolutions for those Pokemon as well. So I think it's just very cool. I think it's just very fun. It's fun to think about those things. How Pokemon will change come the introduction of like Pokemon Champions, and being able to like retroactively like use Pokemon that weren't really featured in those games with those features. But I think like easy Mega Evolution predictions would be like, I think the starter trio, like not the normal starter trio, but the starter trio we have in this game between Totodile, Chikorita, and Tepig, I think those all get Mega Evolutions. I think that makes sense, because obviously, Legends EA starters and Legends Arceus starters did also get like regional forms for Pokemon Legends Arceus. So I think it makes sense for those three to get Mega Evolutions. Though it does become a little weird when Totodile and or Feraligatr and Meganium get Mega Evolutions and Typhlosion doesn't. So maybe Typhlosion also gets a Mega Evolution here. Same thing, I guess, a little bit in the same way, like Tepig, the Samurott and Superior get Mega Evolutions. It would make sense, I think, in my opinion, for those all to get Mega Evolutions. Maybe not now. Maybe that's something they save for like a Generation 10 reveal. Because that wouldn't really necessarily be needed right now. But that could be something like in the DLC or something, the Mega Dimension. But I don't really have many other predictions. Again, I already mentioned like Zygarde and Xerneas and Yveltal. Maybe they'll get Mega as well. I think that makes sense. Just because they are like the box legends, and it'd be cool for them to also get the major feature of the Kalos region in the form of Mega Evolution. We've already seen a couple of other Megas like Mega Victory Bell, Mega Dragonite, Mega Mawile, not Mega Mawile, Mega Malamar, and Mega that kind of threw me off. And Mega Halucha. And maybe we get Mega Machamp. We saw Mega Halucha going against Machamp. Maybe we get another part 2 to that battle, and now Machamp can Mega Evolve or something like that. But I don't really have like predictions for Mega Evolutions outside of that, because obviously, again, if especially if they're expanding it to megas from like generation 7, 8, 9, that's very close to 1,000 new Pokemon that, or 1,000 Pokemon that they can choose. Not like, well, maybe like 300 Pokemon, because obviously, um, there is the like only the final evolution in theory will be getting Mega Evolutions, but still, that's a lot of Pokemon for them to choose from. Um, and I already mentioned like a couple of the future ones, like a Obstagoon or a Dodonzo or Crab Brawler. That'd be cool to get like a Mega Evolution or something like that in the future. Crab Elemental would be pretty cool as well. Darmanitan would be cool too. Generation 5 Megas would be very fun and very awesome. But yeah, I guess the last thing in theory when it comes to like the Pokemon side of Pokemon Legends ZA is we do have ZA, so presumably the Z is represented by Zygarde. What about the A? Obviously now we do understand the ZA is also heavily tied into things like AZ and the Battling Club and the Battle Royale mode, and our team is called MZ. So what about A to N, or not A to N? Yeah, but like, let me make sure. Let me make sure that's correct. A to L. Okay, that's that. I don't know. I got a little confused there. A to L. But yeah. So, but like, do they have their own team? I mean, I think that'd be pretty cool. For them to be like, there be like half of alphabet represented by one team and half the other alphabet, the other side of the alphabet is represented by another team. I think that'd be pretty fun for them to do here. But it does end on A. I think it'd be, if there's one new Pokemon introduced in this game, I think it would be like an A associated Pokemon, like an A legendary, and like maybe Arceus is in this game. Who knows? But I think that just makes a little more sense. I think it makes sense to have for there to be a legendary. Obviously, when we got the game revealed last February, or not last February, but last year in February, there was a lot of speculation. Maybe they would introduce like they would introduce a Pokemon to go along a Z Pokemon in the form of Zygarde. Now that we have new Mega Evolutions and everything, and now they haven't really talked about an A Pokemon. I don't know how likely it is that they'll do something like that, but if we do get a new Pokemon, I think it would be like an A legendary, an A mythical, or something like that goes along Zygarde. But yeah, I guess we can finish off with some final thoughts here. Again, I'm very excited for this game. I tried doing a little bit more content for Legends ZA than I'd done in the past. For this channel, I did like maybe 6 or 7 videos on Legends ZA throughout like the last 2 years, or less. I really only started doing it in March of this year. So, and I'm kind of happy with that. I do want to do a couple more videos after the game launches. We have the Mega Dimension DLC, and I think that's going to be something for us all to talk about once we finish Legends ZA. So like closer, I don't know, the DLC probably releases in like January, February of next year, so I think we'll have a good amount of time to still talk about that before it releases. We'll probably get at least one more trailer for the DLC, I'm assuming, before it releases, so we'll have some new stuff to talk about there, but I'm very excited for it. Again, I might do one more video before the game launches, just to do some final thoughts. I captured, I think, a lot of my thoughts here, but there's still, I think, a lot of stuff we could still talk about for Legends CA. So I will, I'm looking forward to playing the game in just a week. My preload, hopefully, because I'm recording this the day before, so I'm currently 8 days before the game launches, but hopefully my preload comes on really quickly, and and I'm able to download it and be like, oh, I got it, and I got the game. I'm ready to play it. Tomorrow. Normally like the preloads begin at like 12, so, or like midday, depending on where you are. So that's what I'm expecting the preload to also begin here. But yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited for this game. there's again, we're revisiting Kalos, and this is kind of the first version of them actually doing something like this. Um, Besides Sinnoh, I guess, but it's just this means a lot more to some. Like this means a lot more to a lot of people, just because of I think there was a lot they could have done with Kalos back then in 2013, 2014 that didn't happen, and it seems like that the remedy there this is like a remedy to some of that now. They're rectifying some of it, some of those missing missing like features, not missing features, but like missing story beats a lot of people wanted and everything. They were kind of it seems like they may be rectifying that here, which is going to be very fun. For me, not Legends, Pokemon X and Y is a very fun game, and I really enjoyed it back then. So just to be revisiting Kalos in a very new way, and a Lumio city that has evolved in such a way is very exciting to me. See the new Mega Evolutions would be very exciting. Again, I spent a lot of this video talking about how I want the story of X and Y to be continued on here. See some of the familiar characters that we saw in X and Y and everything. And yeah, so I'm very, very excited. And I'm just, there's still a lot to do, still a lot to talk about. The next week will probably go by pretty slow, and I'm hoping it goes by fast, but it's probably going by really slow, as I'm really anticipating and like looking at the clock and being like, oh, we're so close, but still so far away. And yeah, but again, I might do one more video talking about this game. Maybe like a pre-launch hype thing. But besides that, if you all have your own like hopes and predictions for Pokemon Legends EA, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below. And yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited. There's some Pokemon that I never really got in Pokemon X and Y that I'm excited to be able to get now. Like I never redeemed the Volcanion. I believe that's when they started using like the serial codes. I never really redeemed my Volcanion serial code. I don't think I also redeemed my Diancie serial code. So this will be the first time that I'm able to get both of those in the Kalos games, like in a Kalos game, and that really excites me. There's gonna be Pokemon that I've never used before on my team that I think the new battle system will allow me to like feel more comfortable using, because in a lot of ways this kind of evens the field, because there's gonna be like the alpha Pokemon, like you can catch some of them and they'll have like attacks that they traditionally cannot learn. So I think there's gonna be a lot of Pokemon that like maybe a lot of people didn't use before, but they'll feel more comfortable using now that they have like certain attacks that they can use, that maybe like that makes them a little bit more usable in like battling and everything. But obviously I'm gonna use like Micro Ninja, and I probably will use the Ralts that they're giving out on Mystery Gift starting on the day of the game's launch. But besides that, maybe I'll use I don't know yet. It would be cool to use a team of like all Pokemon that can Mega Evolve, because that is also like a new feature in this game, like in the battles, at least in the rogue battles. I'm not sure if it can happen in like your normal wild battles and trainer battles, but you can like Mega Evolve all your Pokemon, and they can Mega Evolve multiple times throughout a battle. So I think it'd be cool to have like a team that can all Mega Evolve, and would love to use like Greninja, obviously the new Mega Evolution. Gardevoir is not a new Mega Evolution, but I would love to use maybe like 3 new ones and then 3 old ones. But that probably won't be finalized until I get to like a certain point in the game where I've seen a couple of all of their new ones that they never revealed pre-game. So pre-game of the pre-launch of the game, because I don't think I would like use like, maybe I'll use Mega Halucha, but I probably don't think I would use something like Mega Victory Bell. Maybe I'll use Mega Dragonite. I don't know. I mean, all of them are usable. All of them are very cool, but I don't see myself using Mega Victory Bell or like Mega Mao. I mean, I'll say Mega Mao again, but Melmar would be pretty cool to use. So maybe I'll use, I don't know. We have to see. We have to see what new Pokemon are else to get. I mean, what Pokemon are getting Mega Evolution before I fully talk about my team. But I think it'd be a pretty cool video to do after launch, after I finish the game, like what my team was. So I'll definitely try to keep like logs of what teams I used like throughout the entire game. I think because I think it'd be a pretty cool thing to talk about and everything. But yeah, there's just so much to talk about in this game, and like with this video, it's already 45 minutes long, so I don't want to continue to just talk and talk. Especially because I could do another video in the future that maybe it's a little bit shorter, that just talks a little bit more about the game. But yeah, without further ado, again, I hope you all are very excited for Pokemon Legends ZA. Again, we are just 1 week away, which is very, very exciting. And yeah, if you have any of your own thoughts on Pokemon Legends ZA, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below. But without further ado, I hope to see you all next week when Pokemon Legends ZA releases. But without further ado, please make sure you're happy, because it rhymes with my previous name, Generic Happy, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. We are 1 week away from the release of Pokemon Legends ZA.